So hello everyone, my name is Shaheen Kazi. I'm the Director of Product Line Management for NETGEAR Insight and NETGEAR SMB Services. And I am here to talk to you about NETGEAR Insight for wireless management and specifically for mid-size Wi-Fi deployment. So obviously we are all going through a very difficult time, all of us worldwide. But we are at a point in this very terrible part of our history where we can see light at the end of the tunnel, and we are beginning to think about life post COVID-19 at a time when we are all vaccinated and we renew life as we used to know, maybe slightly different, but pretty much business as renewed. So that is probably only a few months away, and we want to start using the rest of this time to plan ahead and use this time to update and upgrade our wireless and wired networks in our offices. So very key is that business growth needs Wi-Fi networks to grow. We all know that very well. And certainly after a slump year that we've all gone through, we need to focus on how do we regain growth for business and get back to real kind of growth in business. And very dependent on the need for growth is the need for good frictionless Wi-Fi and connectivity, because the reality is that all employees are very mobile now. And whether you're a 50 or under employee company or a 150 or 250 employee company, Wi-Fi networks is absolutely the bedrock. And during this past year, we've also had Wi-Fi 6 come out. Wi-Fi 6 is the next technology breakthrough in wireless and Wi-Fi, and it actually increases speed by like 250% over that of Wi-Fi 6. But it's not just about speed, it's also about dealing with congestion, dealing with poor signal strength. So all of those are benefits of Wi-Fi 6, and NETGEAR actually has already introduced a number of Wi-Fi 6 access points and routers, and Insight manages all the commercial side, all of the business side of those access points and routers. So it is during this time, we also need to think ahead, not just of business, but also classrooms in schools and colleges, etc. This is also a time to update and upgrade the Wi-Fi network in those locations, particularly as we see students kind of beginning to come back. And as we get into 2021, they're going to come back at higher rates, even as we continue to do some kind of hybrid learning. So it is a really good time to upgrade schools as well, and to ensure during the next few very critical months that we have coverage, good coverage in all rooms, because space is absolutely at a premium now, since you're limiting the numbers of students in every classroom, and potentially even using outdoor spaces to continue to kind of provide education to students. So for all of those reasons, it's really important to think about how you upgrade your Wi-Fi, and then of course use and leverage the juncture of the introduction of Wi-Fi 6 networking devices, and really take this opportunity to upgrade schools as well. The reality is that wireless as well as wired networks, but more specifically wireless networks, are very dynamic, because as more employees, more students join the network, you are going to, that network is not in a static state. It is constantly changing. Every time that there are new employees, new students coming in, they create a difference in signal strength for everybody else. And they also create new blind spots in Wi-Fi coverage. So really the idea is you want to have the ability to have control over how you provide the quality of Wi-Fi service you provide to the employees of the company or the students in the school, and to do it in a way that is dynamic, that it's all constantly being optimized, regardless of how many employees or how many users there actually are on the network at any time. And that is pretty key, that the network be learning, have visibility, and be learning and changing to the dynamic nature of Wi-Fi networks as users go in and out of that network. And that is exactly the kind of capabilities that NETGEAR Insight provides for wireless deployment. NETGEAR Insight is cloud hosted and it is built for scale. It means that it is, in particular, Insight Pro grows all Insight types, but specifically we're talking about Insight Pro. They all grow with SMB, and Insight Pro, which is specifically for MSPs or managed service providers, has the ability to grow dynamically. It's very elastic because it's cloud-based natively. And you do not, as you grow, it grows with you. You do not need to do anything. You just keep adding networks and devices, and you continue to get 24/7 single screen console visibility across all the networks, even multiple customers. If you're an MSP, even multiple customers for and all of their networks that you may be managing. We have the website or the web portal, but in addition, we also have the mobile app, the Insight mobile app on both iOS and Android to give you full control on the go. So that's about Insight itself, and then Insight specifically on how it enhances Wi-Fi for users. It does that by providing that continuous visibility into Wi-Fi performance that I just talked about. Wi-Fi is a very dynamic environment, and so you need to have visibility into Wi-Fi performance in each of your Wi-Fi networks. And then you also need the ability to do ongoing Wi-Fi optimization that is happening behind the scenes, where you don't need to be manually tweaking this. You need a solution, a management solution that can do that for you. A solution that is dynamic and adapting to user growth and changes in that Wi-Fi network. And then, of course, you want visibility. You want to have visibility into the performance of each of your networks, into the kind of signal strength that your users and their end devices are actually experiencing. And all of those are possible with Insight. The next category, you need to use a solution like NETGEAR Insight to improve efficiency, because NETGEAR Insight has a whole bunch of centralization where you don't have to configure devices individually in individual silos. You can configure them in a unified centralized way. Of course, we have zero-touch provisioning for the devices, single console visibility across all the networks that you have. And as I said, with Insight Pro, if you're an MSP with multiple customers and each of your customers has multiple networks, you can manage all of that through a single Insight Pro account. With centralization comes the ability to easily configure devices and networks, to be able to clone network settings, to be able to propagate settings quickly on an ongoing basis. You want to be able to do firmware management and also bring efficiencies to firmware management with automatic scheduling of firmware updates. You just create your schedules and Insight does the rest for you. And then, of course, ultimately, it's really about comprehensive Wi-Fi coverage. As I mentioned, NETGEAR has introduced a number of Wi-Fi 6 access points and router gateways. Insight manages all of those that sit in the SMB, in the business line. And The devices are for, include tri-band Wi-Fi gateways and have indoor as well as outdoor coverage. There are specific devices for outdoor coverage. And then lastly, of course, the world-renowned NETGEAR quality assurance. So in addition to these capabilities, NETGEAR Insight is really about simplified remote wireless management. It does everything from instant discovery and setup of your Insight managed NETGEAR Wi-Fi 5 and Wi-Fi 6 access points and tri-band router gateways. It also, as I said, centralized configuration of your wireless networks, the setup of your SSIDs, the setup of your Wi-Fi security, the setup of your roaming policies. You can create VLANs and have the VLANs tie in with the SSID with the switches, specific ports on switches, including PoE ports. You can set up your PoE for efficiency and to make your networks very secure. And then after the initial configuration of your devices and networks, as I've said, you have the capability of 24/7 visibility, monitoring, and reporting. We have an alerting and notifications engine that alerts you. It's highly customizable, the notifications and alerts in Insight, so you can customize them to the exact level of support that you're looking for, and NETGEAR Insight will alert you when something is not quite right based on the settings that you've already got. And then troubleshooting. Everything from with visibility comes the capability to actually try to troubleshoot and to be able to dig into a network without having to physically go to that location. You can do this from anywhere 24/7. And you can run troubleshooting. There are a bunch of troubleshooting tools built into Insight that you can also apply. And really the idea is that you have a sense of control, whether you have just a couple of networks that you're managing as an IT manager of a small business, or if you are an MSP and are literally managing tens of customers and potentially hundreds of networks. All of that from a single pane of glass with 24/7 remote access and all the goodness of scale that cloud management brings. So let's talk a little bit specifically about Insight for high density Wi-Fi deployment. In general, NETGEAR supports small businesses, and the bulk of our network deployments in Wi-Fi do tend to be on the smaller side. But with the features that we've added in the upcoming Insight release, which is Insight 5.11 release, we've added features that can support larger Wi-Fi deployments. Really consider deployments of 50 to up to 250 employee companies, K through 12 schools with multiple buildings and floors, even local local government organizations, their office buildings. All of those become candidates for Insight managed Wi-Fi deployments. So some of the features that I want to highlight that we're going to be adding in 5.11 includes load balancing for wireless networks to support ongoing optimization when you have multiple access points deployed on a floor or even across floors. Full support for the 802.11k VR standards, which is all about seamlessly roaming, where client devices can roam seamlessly from device to device. So we've got the latest and greatest standards-based technology there. Client and network isolation, the ability to ensure that you have complete isolation, even when you have, as an example, you may have sales and HR who are both accessing the same set of APs. You can ensure that there is no exchange of any kind, no visibility from sales into HR, not their end devices, certainly not their data. And all of that can be done, configured very nicely and easily with Insight. Advanced rate selection, where you have very granular controls of the kinds of signal strength that you want to kind of ensure, the level of performance you want to ensure. And you can set up the minimum and maximum, because you want to have a minimum threshold of the least level of signal strength that you want your users to experience, but at the same time, you also want to have a maximum. And in Insight, you can actually set all of that up. And then client roaming history and reporting. You can actually get very granular reports with the 5.11 release on each of your users' client devices and how the kind of signal strength as they moved from AP, from access point to access point, as they roamed across the school or the office building. And you can see exactly how things and how their experience was, and that helps you to further fine tune. So all of these have been built. This is a summary level of what's been built into 5.11. There are a number of other features as well. So mid-size deployment, just to give you a kind of example of, and again, this is just a sample deployment here, but the idea is that this would be, as I said, a K through 12 school, a small to mid-size enterprise, potentially a small hotel, motel, local government, really a case where you would have a switch at the edge, and then you would have several switches hanging off it, several APs hanging off each switch, including outdoor APs. And then Insight, of course, being the cloud management tool across that entire deployment. And then, of course, smaller deployments, which are already very typical for NETGEAR, where you may have a smaller kindergarten at school, a cafe or a restaurant, auto dealership, certainly lots of retail, etc. Again, all of those capabilities that I've talked about available also in a small deployment. So very quickly, specific features and functionality that we've added in Insight 5.11, as I've mentioned, load balancing. When you have multiple APs in a single deployment, it is important to load balance and actually set how you want to ensure that no one AP is taking on a heavy load as soon as it is. It is basically balanced out, and the APs are going to balance themselves out based on the policies that you set in Insight. Again, full support of 802.11 KVR, and to ensure very efficient and optimal seamless roaming of your Wi-Fi users' devices as they go from AP to AP. Client roaming history, very key to understanding the performance that is experienced by those end users. And then, as I said, complete SSID level client isolation within a single network, even within users of a single AP, advanced rate selection. Really, when you have situations where you have very high density, and you can learn this based on the tools that Insight already has, you can then set minimums and maximums to ensure that the performance of the network is within those thresholds. And then also we've added SNMP support, read-only access for the access points. We've already have this capability on the switch side, and we've now added it for the access points. Finally, broadcast to unicast capabilities. This allows you to convert typically low throughput broadcast traffic to higher throughput unicast traffic to speed up the network. So, and all of these are new features that we've added in 5.11. We've already got a whole slew of features built into Insight that we've had there for a while, related to wireless management, everything from obviously monitoring and managing the connected clients, setting up the IP settings, setting up radio and channel management, the ability to view diagnostics and statistics and even share them the ability to see neighboring access points, and then the notification engine, which has already been available for quite a while. We upgraded that notification engine last year, making it extremely configurable to the user's specific preferences. All the troubleshooting tools like DNS lookup, like speed test, the ability to create multiple networks, SSIDs, the Wi-Fi security, URL filtering on the Wi-Fi, instant Wi-Fi with auto RRM, really the ability to kind of optimize, let Insight optimize the network for you, and then Facebook Wi-Fi, as well as the native hotspot management that we've built into Insight. And then additionally, there's an add-on service for an advanced captive portal capability as well. All of these features are already available in Insight. So with that, I want to thank you all for your attention and for listening in. Thank you.